Hello everyone, we're live from Lindsborg, and today I have a really interesting story for you, and we're only able to do this with special permission today because this is not public land. But today I wanted to bring you the story of this interesting marker that you would be able to see if you looked really closely to the west as you're heading from Lindsborg out to Coronado Heights. And this is a marker where the original Bethany Church was located. In 1864, the government put in place the Homestead Act, which allowed people to take possession of land. As long as they could prove it up, they would break it into farmland, they would break out the sod, and they would be able to live there for 5 years and make it a farm. And so the railroad was given land in alternating sections every 10 miles for a 10-mile wide strip, and they were able to sell this to people if they so chose. So in 1868, the Swedish Land Company, which was formed by a small group of young men in Chicago, purchased, I think, 13,168, I believe, acres that was to be utilized to bring Swedes to this area of Kansas to settle. As they came to this area, 125 individuals approximately, they were led by a young pastor by the name of Olaf Olson. And they decided, as they were breaking out, areas to build dugout homes and trying to break their land out and trying to cut sod for their first winter so they had a place to live. On the prairie, there were very few materials to utilize that were just naturally here for a home. They also decided they wanted a church. They wanted a place of worship. And so on Olaf Olson's 80 acres, they selected a high point and they erected a sod church. Nothing fancy, very plain with wood plank benches in it. And they utilized this church for a very short period of time. It became evident as the railroad progressed further west that we were going to need to not have Lindsborg be here where it was just south of Coronado Heights, not too far. It needed to be closer to the river, to the Smoky River, so that individuals were able to utilize that river for a mill, and the railroad was going to be going through there and they needed that for trade. And so they picked up, moved the basic things that were here in this church, and they abandoned this site. In 1920, a group from Bethany Church, we can read in the minutes, decided that it would be a great idea to find this place again and to put a marker here. But at that point in time, I think they approached the landowners and there was not interest in that time in placing this here. Then, many years later, it was decided that this would take place. There were several individuals in the church that were interested. And in 1993, they were able to work a deal for a 10-foot by 10-foot tract of land to be able to erect this marker that we see here today. I will show you pictures later today from the Bethany churchyard and share with you in those photos a little bit more history. But there is a small marker in Bethany Church's churchyard, just right on Main Street in Lindsborg, where you can see what this would look like up close. It's a much smaller marker. It's just a replica. This marker here is 18 feet tall and was erected in 6-foot sections. As they began to do this, the artist John Whitfield, who had much experience with building tall sculpture, came out and they would build this up in 6-foot sections at a time, letting it dry. As he approached the committee with a design that was approved, he wanted to put this empty, hollowed out cross in it, and that is symbolic of a place where a religious building stood. It's symbolic of the absence of it, but yet kind of the eternal presence, the history that was there. This wonderful church building you can see today on Main Street, Lindsborg, was nothing like the first church. The first church was very humble. It was built out of the very materials they had. It was nothing fancy, but it gave them a place to come together to worship and to fellowship together. As Bethany Church went on to be in its place where it is today, it was the place where the first Messiah Festival, the first Messiah performances took place. It was the place in the sacristy where the first colleges for Bethany College took place. It was a very historic building, but it started right here. I want to just share this place with you, and I hope that you come to Lindsborg sometime and you learn a little bit more from the Bethany churchyard about the symbolic place that this is. Just an exciting story. A little bit of history. Signing off from Lindsborg, and we'll see you again next week.